Mm.
Got the chat there.
Yeah, I saw that.
Perfect. Got the chat there.
Yeah, I saw that.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. We're just working on a few technical things here, and we're going to get started real quick. All right, everybody. Welcome to our next installment in our Webinar FX series. Today's webinar, we're going to be talking about local service ads by Google. So jumping in here, this is what we're going to cover today. First, do a quick intro of myself and take a look at the agenda. I'm Alec Marshall. I have a pleasure of serving as part of the senior team here at WebFX, and actually also have the pleasure of being the subject matter expert on all things local service ads. So I'm especially excited about this webinar. So the first big thing that we're going to take a look at today will be just the basics of local service ads, primarily looking at the how and how it works and the why. Next, we're going to jump into taking a look at how local service ads have already grown since the 12 months from beta launch. After that, we're going to jump into what I think will be the most important thing, the most important takeaway from our conversation today. And that's taking a look at how local service ads have already influenced and changed local search. And more importantly, what that means to us as businesses. After that, for those who are interested in signing up or maybe haven't gone through the process quite yet, we're going to take a look. I want to give you a little preview and give you a sense of what you're going to need to go through to get started. And then the last big thing that we're going to hit on for those especially who might already be running local service ads, we're going to take a look at how to get the most out of it. And after that, we'll wrap up our time here with some Q&As here. A quick note about the chat function you can see here on the YouTube Live. Feel free to leave a question there. Just type it in and leave it. We'll address all questions at the end. But feel free if something pops up during the presentation to go ahead and put it right there in the chat function. So taking a look at here, the first thing that we want to jump into here is the basics of local service ads. So again, kind of looking at the why and the how and kind of getting a good feel for that. So local service ads, if you're not familiar with it, is again focused completely on local search. And specifically within that, it has to do with services and repairs. And a great distinction, a good example of that, local service ads serves the garage door industry. And you'll find that if you search, say, garage door repair, garage door maintenance, garage door installation, local service ads will be present in the given market there and will show up for those searches. But if you were to say search for garage door companies or garage doors, a more sales focused kind of thing, local service ads won't be present. So again, focus primarily on service, repair, home service, things like that. The most important thing to know about local service ads for us is that it's a new lead generation tool. It's a new opportunity, an additional touch point for us on local search result pages with our customers. And again, if you haven't seen it, this is actually an example of a local search result ad from the San Francisco area, which is one of the first cities that Google actually launched this in. So taking a look at here, the why for local service ads, I think my screen is a little delayed, so bear with me here, but taking a look at the why, Google launched this from beta just 12 months ago. So actually originally this feature, this tool that Google had, they had all the way back in 2015. The reason why they started to develop a tool even that long ago and have put such a priority on it since is that they've noticed a higher fraudulent rate, particularly in certain industries, as well as just the general home service industry. And Google wanted to find an opportunity to kind of create what they would deem as their own version of like a home advisor tool that allows consumers in given markets looking for specific things to be confident in the service and the company that they reach out to. And again, kind of ensure both quality for the customer and ensuring also, in a way, quality for the business too, which we'll get into a little bit more. The next thing here, taking a look at the basics of how it works. With the sign-up process getting started here, something we'll jump into a little bit later, but effectively you're going to go through a series of background checks is kind of the biggest part of the process. You'll do background checks at the owner level, the business level, and field worker level. Again, that's something we'll jump into a little bit later on in our conversation because it is a rather important piece of it and is good to kind of know what's going to be happening with that. But the way it actually works once it's live is important to note. This is not like SEO. So if you're familiar with SEO, as many of you are, you know that there are a lot of things every day that you work on to kind of push further and further your rankings up and drive more organic traffic, get these new people, and you're pretty much the captain of your ship, if you want to think about it that way, when it comes to kind of controlling your destiny and where you rank. I mean, it takes a lot of effort, but you can kind of push yourself further up search result pages. Now, local service ads, on the other hand, take a similar approach to PPC in that it's a carousel. It rotates. So looking back at that first slide that I had that showed the example, as well as this is actually a further expanded version of local service ads. There's not, you're not vying for the #1 position or the second position. It doesn't work that way. It's similar to PPC in that there's a constant rotation of ads. And so in this, we want to be far less concerned with position and concerned with a few other things that we'll talk about. But, again, looking for position is not really what we're looking for. Google has that even rotation for the most part when it comes to local service ads. And then the last important thing to know for you as the business, most leads right now with the way local service ads are set up are going to come in through phone. They do have some message options, but most industries and most locations right now that are serviced by local service ads will get their leads by phone. So next here, shifting gears a little bit, taking a look at how local service ads have already grown so much just in the past 12 months since being launched from beta, and how it will likely continue to grow. So first and foremost, taking a look at just even the expansion of locations for local service ads. So rewinding the clock here just 12 months ago, it seems like it's flown by, but I remember having initial conversations about this service, and at the time it was in about 17 locations, primarily on the West Coast. Google launched it in several cities in California and then began to kind of expand it up the West Coast there. Now, fast forward to today, and local service ads is present in over 90 plus metro locations. And I intentionally say metro locations too, because what we're seeing, Philly and New York are a great example where Google actually labels it as New York City area and the Philadelphia area. And so while you may not be in maybe the physical city boundaries of a major metropolis in your area, in all likelihood, local service ads has trickled down into the surrounding areas. And so again, if you haven't checked in a while, again, if you're not in a major area, but maybe you're very close to a big city, and especially if you service that city, go ahead and see if it's available in your area, because again, Google's really pushing it to this more metro expansion of a lot of areas. And the other important note here is just that the fact that in 12 months, they've gone from 17 to 90 plus locations. If it's not already available in your area, it's gonna be at your doorstep. Google has put a lot of priority in this program, into this lead generation. And so if it's not already in your area, it soon will be. So it's an important thing to kind of keep an eye out on. Along with the expansion of locations, Google has also expanded the industries that are covered in local service ads here. So again, just 12 months ago, it only covered locksmiths and garage doors, largely because Google identified a higher fraudulent rate in those industries specifically. but has since then seen great opportunity to expand that to other industries. So right now, as it stands here on the 28th of November, there's about 27 industries covered in local service ads, a number which I expect to grow again almost as rapidly, if not more rapidly, than the location. So again, another note, if your industry isn't in here, or maybe a part of your business isn't in here, keep an eye out for it. What we can predict and what we've seen so far, just based off of what Google has really put an emphasis on, is that their intention is to make this a completely, any home service related company industry will likely be covered in some aspect with the local service ad. So keep an eye out for it if your industry isn't already in here. The last kind of big change that we've seen here in the local service ads is the budget, and more importantly, what you as a business should be putting towards it. When this service first came out, with a lot of things in beta from Google or new things from Google, you like to take almost an experimental testing mindset to it, to kind of just say, hey, we don't know a lot about this because it's brand new, but as a business, we want to try it. We want to be on the cutting edge, to get that leg up on our competition, have that, first adapter opportunity here. So when that was the case, again, just 12 months ago, 10 months ago, the conversations were typically like, hey, let's see what lead generation we can do for about $250, $500. But since then, something we'll jump into here in just a few slides is how prevalent local service ads are already, already prevalent with consumers, how important they already are to the lead generation process. And so now, just in 12 months, this service from Google has gone from, hey, let's test it out and see what we can, to, hey, this needs to be a necessary part of our digital marketing platform. And so because of that, we're seeing a lot of people have success with budgets around $500 to $1,000 a month, depending on what their competition is doing, what market they're serving, all those kind of factors. But somewhere in that 500 to 1,000 mark is a good range and a good thing that we've seen now from a lot of businesses that they're having success with. So shifting gears again here a little bit, getting into what I mentioned is what I think is the biggest and most important takeaway here from us today. So if you kind of get anything from this, this would be kind of the section that I want you guys to leave with good understanding of. And that's, again, kind of looking at how local service ads have already, just in these short past 12 months, influenced the search result pages and influenced users. And then most importantly, then in turn, what that means to us as businesses. So the first thing that we'll notice here, just from a visual standpoint, from a real estate standpoint, is how local service ads have changed search result pages. I mean, right off the bat, you notice local service ads are right at the top of the page. You can see that there on the left example. That is a local search result page with local service ads present, compared to on the right side where local service ads aren't present. And you can just see how everything is pushed down further on the left-hand side. So it's really changing the way that people are interacting with it. And the biggest part is just the fact that it is at the top of the page. And so you have the opportunity, if you're going to utilize local service ads in your marketing efforts, to be at the top of the page, to have presence at the top in PPC, in local, in organic, kind of throughout, and having multiple touch points, which actually kind of gets us into the next major change influence we've seen from service people. And what they did in this case study is they took about half of it, and what you got from it is you were able to see the percentage click down difference of where people were clicking and what they were hitting on. And so what we can learn from this very quickly is that even just in the past 12 months, how prevalent, again, people are already interacting with this service here. They're already largely clicking on local service ads. Here's kind of a graph that will pop up that kind of gives you a better insight into it. But the big thing that we're seeing here is that just in the past 12 months, already about 14% of people are interacting with local search ads, that when they're searching for that plumber or that HVAC or tree removal, garage door pro, whatever industry that they're looking for, about 15% of people are already interacting first and foremost with local service ads, which means that 15% of our potential customers are interacting with this new service. But when we kind of step back and even look at this as a whole, and this I would kind of say is the biggest takeaway, what we're seeing from this graph here is, we're seeing the combination of when local service ads are present and when they're not. But with it or without it, what we see here is that there is very heavy presence and interaction with our customer, with our potential customers at every level of the search result page. And so what that means to us as a business, and when it comes to our marketing efforts and working to, drive, more leads for the business, realizing that when we aren't in local service ads or we aren't in PPC, we aren't in local or aren't organic, we're missing out on a percentage of our consumers. And so the best approach in this day and age in 2018 is to have our business presence in every single level of search result pages. Because again, when you're not present in local search results and the new service from Google, we're missing out immediately on 14% of our customers. And we're just saying, hey, not only are we not getting those 14%, but our competition is. And so we're really missing out on that. So the winning formula here that we're seeing the best success with people is when you have a presence in local service ads, you have a presence in PPC, in local, in organic. Because what you do here is you have a touch point. You're meeting your consumer at every level, giving you as the business the best chance to get them to come on the website or most importantly, become a lead. A quick overview of the sign-up process. If you haven't already gone local service ads, if you have, I'm sure you could probably share some stories where there have been some difficulties. For the most part, though, Google has made it pretty straightforward and pretty easy here. So I do want to kind of give you guys just a heads up so you know what's coming and can really prepare yourself for that and hopefully make the process go really quickly so you can start benefiting from local service ads. So when you go to sign up, this is the information that you're going to need on hand: the business name, location, phone number, website, as well as insurance and license documentation. Those two, particularly the license and the insurance documents, are going to kick off the background check process, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. But this is the information that you're going to need on hand when you go to start the process. Now, as for the actual process sign up here, you'll go ahead. I've actually got the link here. So when we're wrapping up here our webinar and you have a chance to actually go through this PowerPoint perhaps on your own, I do have the link here for your convenience. But when you go ahead and you get here and you're ready to start the process, you'll go through first, you'll just check your eligibility. You'll make sure, hey, local service ads is in my industry and local service ads is in my location. Perfect. You'll move on. You'll go through the sign up process. Google says you'll create your ads. You're not really creating your ads like, say, PPC. Instead, you're supplying them the business information, which they in turn will create the ads for you. Next, like I mentioned, you'll go through uploading license and insurance documents and everything like that, which will kick off the process. And then from there, you'll do, again, a background check at the owner level, the business level, and the field worker level. Now, within the sign-up process, the concern and the hesitation for most people, understandably so, comes from the background check itself. So I did want to spend a moment with you guys just kind of giving you, really answering a lot of common questions we get when it comes to the background check. So the first one, who performs it? This is really important to know. Google is not performing the background check. That is important to know because if there is any hiccup, if there is any questions with any background checks, Google cannot help you. If you call them, they'll just tell you, sorry, we don't have that information, because Google does not have access to the results of your background check. Only the security groups that are doing it, and you have access. Now, the most common security group that is performing the background check is a group called Pinkerton. And for any history buffs out there listening like myself, this is actually the same Pinkerton that was that served as the Secret Service for Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. But more importantly, why we need to know it's Pinkerton for us today is because, again, if there is any question in a background check performed for local service ads, that's the group you'll want to reach out to. They're the ones that have the information and will be able to work things through with you. Again, who's it required for? So it's required for the business. It's required for the owner or the face of the company, as well as all field workers who have the potential to go to a consumer's home. This does include, and this is an important note, this does include any subcontractors as well. Why this is required, why we're jumping through all the hoops for that, is so you can get that beautiful green Google guaranteed check mark with your local service ads, which kind of give you an added confidence with consumers and allow you, again, to kind of be there at the top of the page. Something we'll all love as businesses. What does it cost for us? Absolutely nothing. You are not paying anything for these background checks, so you can have a little celebration about that. You do not have to spend any money on this. Again, and then what is actually checked in the background process? There are a lot of things that are checked in the background process. Again, looking at the license and insurance documentation, making sure that is all up to date, looking at any potential litigation history or any outstanding customer complaints, looking at any criminal history, all those things. Now, a question a lot of times that we also get from that then is, well, what can trigger, a disapproval or, whatever it may be? The answer is really a case-by-case situation. There are no automatic approvals from what we understand that, hey, it's pretty cut and dry. Instead, they take it on a case-to-case basis, and per Google's request with the security groups, they do want to work with us. So if there is forever some reason a little hiccup with a background check, you have the chance to work with the security groups that are running these background checks and do a second background check if needed and go through that process. But I wouldn't be too worried. I haven't seen really actually any people have problems with background checks. But again, if you do, reach out to Pinkerton or reach out to the group that's performing the background check for you. So jumping in here now to our last major section, this is a section for people who are especially already running local service ads, and that's how to make the most out of it. How to get the most, the best impressions, or maybe a chance of getting a few more leads, whatever it may be, kind of making the most of local service ads here for us. So again, I do want to specify this is not like SEO. So Google calls these ranking factors. I think a better, more appropriate name for them is influence factors, because they're not, again, it's not like SEO where it's like, hey, if you do, X, Y, and Z, and you can beat your competition in that, you might be able to leapfrog them into the #2 spot on a search result page. Instead, we take into account that this is a carousel kind of approach, but what we do know is that it's not necessarily a completely even carousel approach, and that you do have the chance to show up maybe just slightly more or have the chance of driving a few more leads. And that's what we want to talk about here. So these, again, are the 5 ranking factors. You'll hear them called Google. Google called them that. Again, I prefer influence factors. But the first 3 there, proximity, hours, and complaints. Let's talk about those 3 first. The reviews and the responsiveness are going to be the 2 that you, as the business operator, as the marketing manager, director, whatever role that you fill, you're going to have the most impact and influence on your local search results with those last 2. So first, jumping in here with proximity, hours, and complaints. Proximity, pretty cut and dry. Google is going to arrange based off of the proximity, how close you are to a search result. So if you are down the street from them, chances are you have a better chance of showing up maybe in the 1 or 2 spot ahead of maybe a competitor that's 20 minutes away. Now, an important note to make about that, though, a lot of questions people say, Perhaps you have a really large service area. And so you're worried that like, well, hey, we might be an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours away from, the outer edges of our service area. Is that going to influence or, negatively affect us in showing up? And that's a good question. And Google actually addressed that in a change that they had to local service ads. And they shared a great example, which I think showcased that well. But a plumber in San Francisco actually happened to service also San Jose. If you're not familiar with California geography, San Jose sits about an hour southeast of San Francisco, so a larger service area. But when you go through the sign-up process, the great and really simplistic thing about local service ads is that you'll be able to tell Google zip code by zip code what area you service. And so if you work in San Francisco as a plumber, but also serve San Jose, if you have the San Jose zip codes in there, you will show up in the local service ads. So proximity is an influencer, but it's not a make or break thing when it comes to showing up. The next thing here is hours. And what Google means by the hours is just simply that they're going to check the businesses in a given area, in a given industry, going to check their listed hours and then match that to the search query. So if your office hours are, 9 to 5 and a search query is coming in at 7:30, Google's not, is not going to give you the edge over a competition because you're not there. And so they don't want to give a consumer your voicemail. But a pro tip here, just a little side thing, that while everyone has, obviously their set business hours, I know in a lot of industries that are available here in the local service ads, many of us have people that can be reached are, quote unquote, on call all the time. If that's the case, if your business maybe has your normal office hours, but does have somebody on call all the time, I would recommend changing your hours in local service to 24/7. The reason simply being is that your listing will show up more, giving you the chance for more leads. The last of the first three here, complaints. This is Google taking a look at once you are Google Guaranteed approved. Obviously, they have considered and set you aside as maybe a more qualified, more quality business in your market. And so obviously, they want you to continue to act that way, which I don't think for the people listening to this is a problem. You guys are all great at what you do, so keep it up. But if for some reason there is a complaint with a customer, it's important to note that Google actually cares less about the complaint itself and cares more about you as a business and your response to it. They want to see effort on your part, rectifying it or correcting it, because they understand that there are going to be unhappy customers. That's just the reality of the work that we do. But what they care more about is you as a business. What are you doing to rectify it and make things right? And that's what Google really cares about when it comes to complaints. Now, looking at the last two, as I had noted, and probably can't say enough, when we're thinking about making the most of local service ads, these two last influencer rankings have the biggest impact on our local search result, or our local service ads success. So first, looking at reviews. So first, understanding how Google looks at reviews. When you go through the sign-up process, you get approved for local service ads, Google will pull in your current Google My Business rankings and reviews. And so now more than ever, our Google My Business reviews have even more importance. We all know that those are important ranking factors for local SEO. Now they're important influencing factors for our local service ads. And so having more reviews, higher quality reviews are going to help you in that aspect. But the other two, so Google looks at your Google My Business reviews. They also look at what they call verified reviews. And what the verified reviews are once you are approved as a business and you complete a job through local service ads, you'll see you have the ability to then follow up with that person. As part of that follow-up, you can ask for reviews. Because you are a Google Guaranteed business and because they went through the local service ads platform, Google considers the review from those people as higher pointage, higher quality, however you kind of want to look at it. So Once you are running, and if you already are running your local service ads, it is imperative, it is crucial for you to be following up with leads, following up with reviews. Every job that you complete through local service ads, you should be following up with a review. Now, we know that getting reviews is hard. I always like to think about it as it's like baseball. You will, get out, 70% of the time. But if you're batting 300, you're still doing a good job with your reviews. You're still, have a chance to be an all-star. And so keep following up with those reviews. The more reviews, the more verified reviews that you can get, especially in comparison to your competitors, the better you can distinguish yourself when it comes to separating yourself from the competition and things like that. So the next big thing here is taking a look at the responsiveness, particularly with the way that you get back to results here. And forgive me just a second, I'm going to close out that window so we don't have anybody interrupting us again here. But so again, with the reviews, with the responsiveness, this was an interesting one that we didn't expect Google to have as an influencing factor when it came to local search results and with the new platform with local service ads. But what responsiveness means for us and why we have such great control and impact with this is that Google wants to know how quickly are you responding to leads. They view that as a quality measure of your business, which again will help them kind of distinguish and give you a chance to show up a little bit more. And so particularly with that, you can see my little pro tip down there in the left-hand corner. Google, they haven't actually shared this publicly, but having a chance to talk with some people internally at that team, they've shared that the golden time frame, the golden rule for them when it comes to local service ads is responding to any lead within 24 hours. Google looks at that and gives you 2 big thumbs up and says, great job, and gives you a little extra boost, a positive influencing factor when it comes to your local service ads. Now, on the other side of that here, and actually something a lot of people have been running into where they, whether it's not responding to a lead or not thinking a lead is really good, and just not wanting to respond to it, Google actually looks at that negatively. If you're not responding to a lead, again, obviously 24 hours being the golden rule, if you're not responding though to a lead within 2 weeks, the lead actually disappears. And that's a rather negative signal that Google gets and kind of sees, with your local service ads. And so say you get 10 leads in a given week, but maybe 5 of them, for whatever reason, are just not jobs you want to do and you don't respond to them. Well, Google looks at it and says, okay, you got 10 leads and you didn't respond to half of them. So why are we sending you leads in the first place? And so the special note for this one here is, again, responding to the leads in 24 hours is great, but even if the leads are not maybe a job you want to do, or maybe it's just not a good quality lead, still respond to it because you can still get kind of that positive factor for your local service ads out of that. So it's important to respond to all leads, and if you can, respond in the 24-hour kind of time window that Google really loves. And then one last note here, and this one I think you could argue as the most impactful way to make the most out of your local service ads. And that's going back to reviews. So we talked about obviously getting reviews, but going back to actually the case study that we looked at earlier where they divided up people and gave them a different search result page. The other major key takeaway that we learned from that is that it was really nice. They actually asked people, why did you click on a given, business listing or a given local listing, whatever it may be. And when it came to local service ads, the number one reason anybody clicked on a business in the local service ads was not because of position, but instead because of their average review rating. And they actually put this theory then to the test and purposely put a 3.6 average company in the number 1 spot and put a 4.6 in the number 4 spot. And believe it or not, the business in the 4th spot got significantly more clicks than the business that was positioned in the number 1 spot. And so what we can learn from that as businesses is that we care less about the position. I care more about the reviews I have and the average ranking I have. And so when you're looking to get more out of your local service ads as well as your local SEO, this applies to that too, but especially for local service ads, the more 5-star reviews that you can get, the better chance that you have at getting leads, because we know consumers are looking for that. So you're increasing your potential conversion rate. You're increasing the potential of leads that you can get from local service ads. So those are the big takeaways here. We'll recap kind of our conversation here before we jump into any Q&As. Again, feel free to start typing your questions out here in the chat bar there and with the YouTube live. But kind of here are our big takeaways. Again, if you guys get kind of take away the big stuff here, first and foremost, looking at how local service ads have already changed the game. Just in the 12 months that they've been launched since beta, they're already changing and influencing the way that people are interacting with local search results. And particularly what that then means for us as a business, as we know here, is our best success comes from when we have a presence in every single level of the search result page. The next two big things here, getting verified reviews not only helps send positive ranking factors about your local service ads, but also helps you potentially drive more leads, giving you that leg up over your competition. And then lastly, responding quickly here to your leads and kind of getting that edge over your competition as well. So that wraps up the main part here of our webinar today. I appreciate you guys listening in, and now we kind of want to turn our time here to some questions and kind of spend our time the last little bit that we have here taking a look at those. So feel free to start typing in your answers here, or your questions, and we'll start to kind of go through those and answer those. So while we're waiting on people to go ahead and get their questions in here, from a follow-up standpoint here, there will be a follow-up email, I believe, that's going to go out, and you will have access to the recording here and be able to listen to our conversation again today, as well as go through and look at the PowerPoint as well. Again, feel free to type in your questions if you have any. I'm looking here, I'm not seeing any, so I'm hoping that there's no technical issues, and maybe I just answered all your questions ahead of time and nobody has any. But I will say, just again, serving as the subject matter expert on this and getting frequently asked questions both from my colleagues as well as with businesses that we've already worked on this with. A lot of common questions we get. One of the biggest ones is, well, hey, since local service ads are now at the top of the page, should maybe I pull my budget out of PPC or out of something else and just put it into that? And that's a really common question that we get. And to answer your question, kind of going back to one of the things that we talked about here, the best success that you can have as a business is to have a presence in every single level of the search result page. So again, going back to that graph that we looked at, we looked at about 15% or so for local service ads, 11% for PPC, 30% or maybe 20% for maps, and even just about 50% for organic. And so what we learned from that is when we're not present in any one of those levels, we're literally missing out on 15 or 11 or even 20% of our potential customers. And then those potential customers are finding our competition. And so, while yes, we've got to, be mindful with our budget, that there's an immense advantage to being present in all specific locations. Not to mention too, you can have a lot of success with a local service ad campaign with, again, a budget of $500, like we talked about earlier. And that being because the cost per lead for this is rather low. Google intended it to be low. It varies based off of location and industry, but we've seen it as low as $14 and as high as $37. And so, I mean, $37 for a lead, guys, that's a fantastic cost per lead. And so, again, my answer to that common question we get, I don't know if anybody else had that question, but my recommendation is not to pull out money from another service to replace it, but instead to add local services on as an additional marketing level, an additional touch point with your potential customers. Another common question that we also get here too is what are the marketing rights to the Google Guarantee checkmark insignia that comes with being approved for Google Guarantee? There is more information on Google's website on their rights and trademark rules, but for the most part, check with that first. But for the most part, if you are approved as a Google Guaranteed business, that is something I would highly recommend that you leverage. And so whether you add that insignia, along with other accreditations onto your website, or maybe you even use that lingo in conversations with customers, this is just another added thing, similar to how we treated the Home Advisor badge, or maybe some of these Angie listings. It's another kind of badge of pride that we can wear and say, hey, we are a outstanding quality company, and here is just yet another kind of badge trophy to prove that for us. So I would encourage you to use that. Again, check first with their trademark, their laws and their rules, but you should be able to use that. And I would encourage you to use that as an added marketing level, an added piece to your marketing strategy. So real quick here with the technical difficulties, I want to make sure I've got a chat actually up in another window, but I want to make sure it's not coming through here. So forgive me as I exit out of here and just check in here on what's showing up on my laptop. So, okay. I'm not seeing any other questions coming through here, guys. So I'll take that as hopefully a compliment that I've been able to answer all your questions here. And so, again, I thank you for joining us today, and please keep an eye out for the follow-up. And if you have any questions following our presentation today, please feel free to reach out to your internet marketer, and I can touch base with them, or in likelihood, they'll also know the answer. So we look forward to kind of helping you out here to kind of add this new lead generation service to your marketing moving forward. But with that, again, thank you for joining us, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day.